I think about all the abuse. I think of all the isolated leaders to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That like no one was kind enough to them to be like, can I talk to you for a second?
Yeah.
Like, dude, the way you're leading,
Mm-hmm.
the way you're posturing, the way that you're leading this church, this institution, or your family, or what, like, that's not you.
Yeah.
It's not the way of Jesus. Hey, what's happening? Welcome to another episode of the Radical Middle Podcast. Of course, I'm here with Lenmarie, Pascal.
Hello.
I'm Tommy Nixon, your host. We talk about the things that we think leaders should be talking about right now so they could better reach the youth. And so today what we're going to be talking about is, I think, here's one of the biggest problems I think is in the church right now. We're too nice. I think niceness is killing us in so many different ways. And so here's what I mean by that, though, so that we can get into it, is that there's been so many opportunities, so many things that I've seen actually, where we want to be like this weird version of Jesus where it's just, hey man, like, and maybe that's what you thought the radical middle was, like, hey, we're just centrist, bro. Like, I don't want to ruffle feathers. Hey, and not wanting to ever get into it. And I think this is like killing us. In fact, I think this is one of the big things that we're not talking about in the church, that this is why young people are leaving.
It's so funny you just did that, because that's the image of Jesus that we've seen, this like long hair.
Oh, yeah. He's like a hippie.
Like hippie Jesus.
What's going on, guys?
Yeah. So that's probably part of it.
Right.
No, but yeah, I get that. I think I said this on a podcast once, that I used to pray and be like, God, I just want to be a nice person. I just want to be nice, right? Because I thought that if I was like telling the truth too much, if it was ruffling feathers a little bit, that I wasn't being nice. So I'm like, Lord, I just want to be nice. And I think in seminary, my friends were like, there's a difference between being kind and being nice. So.
Yeah. No, talk more about
okay.
What's the.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a difference between kind, because I absolutely agree with you. I have a ton of examples of that. The difference between being kind and nice.
Okay.
Because we conflate them all the time.
Yes,
and
we do. I did for a long time.
I'm getting kind of sick of it, because I'm just like.
So I want you to share about what does nice look like in the life of a Christian.
Yeah.
And then I'll share about what I understand kind to be.
Absolutely. So like nice for me is when I talk about people being nice.
Yeah.
Is they don't want to deal with conflict.
Yeah.
They're avoiding the conflict, or they think that there's some spiritual benefit to just being like, well, and they misunderstand grace, and they give people leeway, and so there's not wisdom.
Yeah.
People stay longer than they should. No one's being corrected.
Yeah.
And then you have things where I got a whole other thing we talk about later, but the whole idea about like he's a good guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, he's not a good guy. Mm-hmm. That guy, he's a predator. Yeah. Or that guy, he's extremely toxic. Or that guy and because we just want to be nice, and there's like this weird, niceness is not in the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like love, joy, peace, patience, nice.
Yeah.
Nope. Not in there.
Not there at all.
And so I think it causes a lot of problems. And so when I talk about being nice, that's what I mean. So like, and you're talking about, well, there's a difference between being kind and being nice. So
I think kindness, being kind to others and to yourself, looks like showing up authentically. Mm-hmm. I think it's part of kindness is being truthful about if you see your brother, sister, doing something crazy, being honest with them instead of saying, oh no, it's okay. I think being kind is having boundaries.
Yeah.
Is saying no.
Yes.
Like, I'm being kind to you right now by saying, no, I can't. Because if I do, I'm going to show up aggressive, maybe passive aggressive. I'm not going to be able to give my all. And it's just not going to be honest of me to participate in whatever, Kindness is also, I think I mentioned this already, right? Having the hard conversations.
Yeah.
Saying no, having boundaries. And I would say holding others to like a standard, holding them accountable.
That you are too, right?
I am also trying to, and expecting that too. I expect that everything that I'm saying in kindness is what I want as well.
Yeah, and I really think, honestly, it's funny that we're having this conversation now so late into all the radical middle
Yeah.
content, because really this idea, the tension of niceness is the radical middle space. Here's what I mean by that. I think kindness is, to what you're saying, it's being truthful. It's being honest with somebody.
Yeah. And yourself.
And yourself,
Yeah.
which means that, so again, friends, like radical is like, how can you radically follow Jesus? The middle is not centrist. It's the place where we wrestle with the truth. Kindness is me going, hey, I think I see a problem. And instead of, because here's the other side of this niceness thing is the aggression part, or the, I'm just going to come down on you and I need to hold you to the standard. And so it's like sin management.
Yeah.
Outside sin management. It's like, no, you're accountable to me and I'm going to make sure you do, it's not that either. No. Christians do not know how to live in the tension of the center, that radical middle space of going, hey, I'm concerned, and inviting them into a conversation rather than, you're not meeting these standards, and just going, hey, I'm concerned. Like, here's what I'm seeing or experiencing. Can we talk about that?
About it? Yeah.
And I think you actually, I've seen you. I think you really model that radical middle space for people because you're really kind. I've seen you bring up stuff like, hey, I noticed this, or can you help me understand this? I think you do that. You did that with your students.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so talk a little bit about like, what is your process? What does that look like? And how do you be kind?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that because I wrestled so much with that. So younger Len was always very blunt. Like I was always the one that's like, dang, girl. Like my dad would always be like, your mouth is going to get you in trouble. He wanted me to be a lawyer so bad because he just felt like I would just say things. And so then I got really serious with Christ and I was like, that prayer, Lord, help me to be nice because I actually thought that me being blunt was not being nice, was not being helpful or Christian, right? So help me to be nice, help me to curb my tongue and, like that type of thing until I got to a place where I felt like I was like, no, I actually need you to speak up in different times and whatever like that. So I think my process has been understanding, one, this is who I am. This is a call that God has called me to just speak the truth in love. And two, leaning into just loving people well. And then that kind of makes just, I guess, happen to produce what you're seeing maybe. Yeah. I'm saying it like this because I think I'm still working it out.
Well, sure.
Because there are some things where I really struggle to say or to invite someone into conversation with. And I think the third thing would be I really desire that for myself. Like I really desire that from others. Like I want someone to sit me down and say, Len, I just noticed that you haven't been operating with integrity. Like I crave that from people around me for them to be honest.
Yeah.
Because what I experience as a believer is a lot of niceness.
And that doesn't help you.
It doesn't.
Right? It's like
it doesn't.
And I love this conversation because it's like we have to figure out how to operate this because I was like you, and probably you're watching this and you're like, brother, that's still you. Very much like I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. I don't like BS. I don't like to pussyfoot around stuff. I'm like,
beat around the bush.
But beat around but I think when I was younger, it was much more brash, calling people out, like, and I was loving them because I fully invite people to do that to me.
Yeah.
But I did get to a place, if I'm honest, where instead of being nice, because I always try to tell the truth. Yeah. Like you won't hear me use flattery. You won't. If I tell you something, I've thought through it. Yeah. I'm very intentional with my words. But I got to a place where I got hurt. Like I felt like I gave all this stuff to people, so I've stopped wanting to bring truth to people's life because I'm like, that's not worth it. It's painful.
Yeah.
And yet I feel like God going, you gotta be kind to people. You gotta love them well enough to be like, hey, can I talk to you for a second?
Yeah.
Now I feel like a lot of my job is just hard conversations. Like, and so I've gotten decent at it, pretty good at it, but there's still this place where I feel like You ever got older people in your life that just they don't care anymore? They just start telling people stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, culturally, that's a thing in my culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
the old people, they just gonna say it.
Girl is ugly. She needs to know.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
You look, hey, you hit all the branches all the way down. Like you go fix yourself, right?
Yes.
But there's a part to that where it's like, well, we still have love and kindness, like love in that, but those are so kind, right? Like it's not kind if I'm just gonna let you walk around with stuff in your teeth. Like,
yeah, it's not.
I gotta let you know.
It's not.
So how, really getting to this place, but to stop being nice. But then there's a movement on the other side of that where it's just like aggression.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, right? Because I mean, talk about, where have you seen that? Like in the church, right?
I think it's a thing right now because it's marketable.
It is.
I think it goes viral when someone is able to call someone else out. And yeah, it's cringy. And I know, man, I think, okay. I'm trying not to okay. I think that we are supposed to be able to speak the truth and have people be held responsible. I don't know how effective it is when we go on national stages or even on podcasts like with big followings and call out because Tommy Nixon is a whatever and he's done what I don't know how effective that is. I think that within our relation, a lot of the people I would assume that are really comfortable with calling people out on national stages are probably not that good at telling their wife that they're not content with, something in the home. Or
do you have somebody in mind? Who are you thinking about?
No, I'm not. I literally intentionally blocked everyone else out so that I don't use an example that someone could say that I'm talking about someone.
No, right.
But
word.
yeah, I think there's a way to do it. And I don't think it's helpful for us to continually, because it's kind of self-righteous, it's judgmental, it's all the things that God, and we're all especially, we're all predisposed to that. I've definitely, So yeah, I think when a lot of times kindness really has to do with the people that we have relationship with and those that we have influence over. So we have to steward it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of it. The relational thing, it's relationship.
Yeah.
So I've got to know you and have the relational capital and all that to be like, hey, can we talk?
Can we have a
do you trust me enough for me to bring something to you?
Yeah.
Like, you got to fix this. Or can we talk about this? Cause and explore that together. And a lot of times in conflict resolution, we talk about that being like, you're digging for the truth. Like, so it's not me coming to you going, you're wrong, you messed up.
Right.
Sometimes it can be that black and white, but a lot of times like, hey, can you and I dig into the truth over here? So you and I are together and we're looking at this thing here and then digging into that.
Yeah.
Right. It's not kind of me if I'm just like, oof, your house about to collapse. But you know what, man? Not my place to talk.
You.
Like, you do you. But I'm like, I've got to love you enough to be like, hey, and I have lived that out, man. I remember a really good friend of mine who was going to get married and I was worried about the person he was going to marry.
You said something?
Oh yeah. We had a full I said, I don't think you should get married.
Wow.
And then we had a heart, and you know what? The trust was so much there that he was like, this is really hard for me to hear.
Yeah.
And I go, it's coming out of love, bro. I would never say that to you. And I also committed, if you make this decision, just know I'm for you.
Yeah.
Like, if you make this decision, just know I'm for your marriage. I'll do everything to see, that I can to support it, to see it works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to be over here all in the corner, and I tried, I did. And that was hard, but that's the kind of friends we need. Right.
Yeah.
But that's not my job with your friends.
Right. Correct.
I'm not going around to all your friends being like, you sure about that guy?
Right.
I don't know them. I don't.
Right. You don't have that relationship. And a lot of times I think a lot of these when we enter into these conversations, I think it's so important for us to enter with questions. Like I can have
Yes.
all the facts that I think I have. It's so important for us to enter with questions because a lot of times we uncover things
Yeah.
that we didn't even know. And we get closer to the root
Yep.
of the behavior than just saying, I know you lied about that. I know you did this and you shouldn't be doing it. It's not helpful.
Yeah. And I think you have to love that person enough to trust them on how they're going to react to it.
Yeah.
But you also have to trust God enough to be like, I'm doing what's right. I'm loving this person well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what we're afraid of is losing the relationship.
Yeah. That's the biggest fear for sure.
But what's interesting to me is that ultimately a selfish act?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you don't love
Self-preservation.
this person enough to tell them the truth so that you don't lose something.
Mm-hmm. Or you don't look bad.
Or you don't look bad, or
Yeah.
you don't. That's not Christ-like, man. Christ laid his life down for it. And that's why I think this idea of being nice is so huge because I remember with, when everything, there's a big church called,
You don't have to say what the name of it is.
oh no, I'm about to say it, right? So, right, Willow Creek and
Right.
Bill Hybels and all that. And I
Mhm.
remember there's been all this abuse of women there and abuse of power, and it wasn't good.
Yeah.
But I remember somebody asked the women, some of the victims, hey, why didn't you speak up? And they
Yeah.
were like, I was afraid that it was going to ruin what God was doing here. Let me tell you, you're not big enough to ruin that.
Yeah.
Everything will come to light.
Yeah.
And somebody needed to love Bill enough
Yeah.
early on to go, hey, whoa, I know we're having success here. I know you're an awesome leader, but
Yeah.
this is wrong. Something's not right here, dude. And nobody did.
And
right.
that's always my first question
Yeah.
when these things happen, wherever, in whatever context. Who are their friends?
Right.
Who are their friends?
Now, if you don't have any friends, you only have followers, you got a problem.
Big time.
And you have to have those circles of trust. We talked about this the last episode.
Mhm.
Like, who do you have that you can have some more intimate conversations
Yep.
with, like that you have some trust built so
Yeah.
that you can actually deal with and have and then invite people. I want you to know you can speak into my life.
Absolutely.
Like, I even do that here at UYW. I'm always like, there are certain leaders that I go, I want you to know if you see something you think is weird, you totally have permission to call me and go, dude, what are you doing? That was a
Yeah.
weird decision you made. Why is UYWI doing this? How come this is not right or whatever it is? There's certain people, but here's the thing. I don't give that pass to everybody.
Yeah. And you
Because
shouldn't.
And if somebody's online that I don't know and they're like, you're an idiot or man, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't know you. You
But
don't know me.
You're also wired like that. For some
That's
people,
true. That's
it's
true.
harder.
Let's talk about
So let me talk. Let me just say, I think personality wise, I
Yeah.
am the person that I'm susceptible to like people pleasing or wanting to be liked or whatever, right?
it.
That has been part of my story. I think right
Yeah.
now I'm at a place where I'm just like, but it's something that I have wrestled with and still wrestle with. So for people like that, it's so important to say, to measure, like, am I going to please them or am I going to please God? Literally, it comes down to that for me. It's like, Len, who are you going to please? Are you going to be friends with them, be an enemy of God? And that's kind of,
wow.
that's drastic.
That's
super drastic, y'all. And I'm not talking theologically here. I'm just talking about my
like the
way
inner dialogue. That's
the inner
real.
dialogue.
That's real.
I'm not talking about like my deep theological thoughts, but like my inner dialogue is like, for real, Len, like, are you gonna, for one moment of a like or acceptance, for like a lifelong of, whatever.
That's good.
That's kind of like where I have to land a lot of times, even for this podcast, to be honest. Even some things that I say that I feel passionate about and I'm honest about. And I know that people in my own
you're like,
circle.
don't post that clip.
Yeah, exactly. And I know people in my own circle probably don't feel the same way. It takes a lot for me to, accept the post on my page. A lot of times I don't, because I'm still wrestling with it real time. So I wanted to just be vulnerable and say that for my people who are like, it's hard to do what y'all are saying. I get it. I have to push through
that's
that
helpful.
every single time.
Well, I will say, one, thanks for being on this podcast. I appreciate you, especially I know the burden it is. Two, I would say I get it. I think I've backed off from it, and I feel like I'm called to like, you got to continue to speak truth into people, because I feel like I gave my life to all these people, and then in some ways I just got hurt from that, or
Yeah.
and so I've been like, I'm not gonna put myself out. I'm not gonna do it right. But there's something you said was really interesting. In the attempt to be kind and to be loving, to put yourself aside for that, to actually love that person well and to love God well.
Yeah.
And these are the greatest commandments. Like Jesus, just like all the law and prophets, love God, love others.
Yeah.
That's what this looks like. And the church is terrible at it. And Christians are terrible at it. And people are terrible at it.
Yeah.
To be like, do I love you enough to tell you the truth? Have the conversation at the risk of whatever your reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
Now, we've shared some things today that's like, you can do it in better ways.
Yeah.
You can grow in this, please.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You don't have to be all aggression and right.
Yeah.
You can be vulnerable in the sense of like, hey, I was worried to bring this to you because listen, I love you. I don't want to lose our friendship.
Yeah.
Because I love you, can we talk about this?
Yeah. And I've messed up in doing it. Oh my God. I've learned right? I've learned so much from like ways that I was passive aggressive doing it, or just passive, or not fully telling the whole thing that I need to say, holding back. There's been so much ways that I think I've messed up that I've learned from over time. So I think that's another encouragement too. It's like, as you engage in it, like you will mess up.
I mean, okay, let's think about this though. What are the consequences of being nice? Because okay, I understand those of you guys out here listening to this, you're going to be like, I don't want to do that. Yeah. That's not worth it to me. I would actually rather be nice, maintain all these relationships, and never have to engage in that. But what's at stake here?
Never going deep with anyone, right? Never really having true relationships, never really knowing others and being known for who you truly are and accepted for who you truly are. I don't know. Will you give another one?
No, well, I think, I'm thinking even institutionally. Like,
institutionally.
I'm thinking like abuse. Like millions of young people leaving the church because when it does finally come to light, no one loved that leader enough. And I'll take that back. Some of you have, and that leader was obstinate, and they're just like, nah, look what God's doing, and okay, well, you can't help that.
Yeah.
But I think about all the abuse and all I think of all the isolated leaders to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That like no one was kind enough to them to be like, can I talk to you for a second?
Yeah.
Like, dude, the way you're leading, the way you're posturing, the way that you're leading this church or this institution or your family or what, like, that's not you.
Yeah.
It's not the way of Jesus. Like, so I think a lot's at stake, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot is at stake. It's interesting how we think, right?
Yeah. You're like, Tommy went institutional right away. You were like intimate, which I really love, because I think at the core, what you're talking about, that's actually the problem that then gets played out.
I was just going to say, I actually think they're connected. I just think that one happens on this micro level that then continues to grow and affect others if not checked on that,
Yeah.
I heard someone legit say, like, I didn't check this particular pastor when I knew that they were cheating on their wives, with men.
On their wives.
Right. On their wife with men. I didn't check them because they opened doors for me and the access that their life. So if I checked them, they would have lost that and I would have lost. I heard that. Someone say that real time. And that just goes back to like, well, if we're not showing up with kindness, we don't have deep relationships with others. So that person didn't love. What I heard was you didn't love him enough because it was all about what you could gain from that relationship.
And that's that objectification.
Oh,
we've talked about that in sexual ethics. I'm like, and we're not treating each other like
image bearers.
Made in the image of God, right? We're not. And there is that calling to like, this is, instead of like, you didn't do this, this, and this, or you broke this, this, and this rule. It's like, you're not becoming who God created you to be, and you're a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And if no one tells you about this, or no one confronts you, or no one will walk with you in it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the relationship part's so key to this, because I know I do radical middle and I'll be talking about stuff and I don't, share things, but I'm not here to actually just bring up dirt on people that I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably go back to episodes and be like, what about this? Like,
they need to play that clip. Say it again.
Yeah.
I'm not here to say
right, exactly. They'll be like, and then they'll rewind and come up with another clip. But I mean, part of it is there are things where I think you should call things what they are. Like, hey, that was wrong. Because that idea of being nice also stops us from, it's clear that's sinful. It's clear that's wrong, but nobody wants to say anything about it. And I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let's be courageous and be like, no, that's wrong. I can call that out. But if I'm going to go, if I have the relationship and I'm not going to that person, I'm talking about after all the things come out, I'll talk on that stuff. Yeah. That's wrong.
Yeah.
But there's a part of it too where I'm just like, well, there are a ton of things that I don't know. There's some things that I see smoke, but I don't know. So I'm not going to talk about it. It's not my place, right? If I don't have the relationship.
If you don't have the, yeah.
Right. Okay, right. But I'm also not using it as another leg up, objectifying those people. But there are things where I go, that just doesn't seem right. There's also a whole nother conversation about like how fame and like gets you into different spaces. And so you become fair game at certain, that one's a little bit harder. I think there's a lot of tension there, but yeah, man, I think this idea of being nice and being kind is a huge issue in the church.
Yeah, I think so as well. How do you think that we change what do you think needs to happen within the church, the local church, to change that culture?
I mean, I think...
Or to shift, I should say.
I think, one, we have to really look at our theological framing of stuff. There really is out there some type of theology of nice.
Yeah.
And we got to break that down and go, we were never called to that.
Where?
Yeah, where does that come from?
Yeah, because I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't find it in Scripture at all.
A little bit. Yeah.
And I think it gets balanced from all the Scripture that talks about, grace and love.
Loving
and
your
there's a tension there.
Yeah, okay.
But I think we actually need to have conversations around the theological framing of that. And just go, why do we feel like niceness is like some spiritual thing to attain? Because it's not. The other part of that, I think, on a practical level is Christians do not know how to have conflict well.
Yeah. So
they're either extremely passive aggressive or they're aggressive.
Yeah.
And aggression right now, like we talk about, is it's something that is selling right now. Like, man, especially in the man space, like that makes you a real man. I'm like, no, it makes you a jerk. Like, just to be aggressive, right? But on the other side of that, conflict resolution. How do you have hard conversations? How do you walk with people well? And that's like a heart of pastoring, right? But and there's other theological frameworks of like, it is what it is. And, I've just got to wait till God moves on that. And I'm like, or you could have the conversation.
Yeah. And have the conversation in a timely manner. Don't have it 2 years later and say what you did, and so. Because then those whole 2 years, you've been nice to that person, but you've really been harboring resentment against them.
Yeah. So I think those are some of the things that definitely that I go, those are some, and I think we have had a episode on conflict, right? And we don't do that well.
Yeah.
And we've got to really deal with this theological framework of being nice and get past that. Now I've seen that go in some weird ways where people are, hardcore, like legalistic, and that's not what we're asking for either. There's that tension in there. So anyway, I love how you frame it, Lynn, the difference between kindness and being nice.
Yeah.
And I think definitely one of those spaces that we need to wrestle with in tension as we wrestle with God's truth, as we radically follow Jesus. So we hope that today's been helpful to you.
Yeah.
We would just tell you, stop being nice
Don't do it.
instead be kind. And we think that'll make a better church, and we think that'll make better institution. And we think that'll make you a better leader. And so check us out on the Radical Middle. Also, I think we actually have a ton of things on the Futures Here podcast on leadership.
Yeah, that
Go
would
check
be
that
so
out.
good.
We talk a lot about how to do this well. Go check that out, and we'll see you guys next time.